Kia ora everyone, welcome to this Electricarna event. I'll just let you grab a few more items of food and then grab your seats. That'd be great. I'm Andrea Rowe and I work for Sustainable Taranaki. I'm a partnerships manager here in the South. So this is a really great space for you to all come on board. Sustainable Taranaki's got some really awesome work that we're doing. You may know about us, you may not. Sustainabletaranaki.org.nz is where you'll find a whole lot of information about us. We do heaps of work. We go about working to inspire people. We also do educational work and we also set about setting sustainable practices across our whole area. The awesome thing about being here in the South Taranaki district is if we're not here and we're not promoting what we're doing in Taranaki wide, then it's not going to happen at grassroots level, which for me is here. I live here, so you will find me here. And I've been here for 16 years. I've got kids that go to school here and I'm part of the community fabric. And I think that's really important for people from Hawera and South Taranaki to know that there is a presence in the South for Sustainable Taranaki. So welcome to our amazing event. We've got some traction going on in South Taranaki for Sustainable Taranaki events, and it's awesome to be partnering with Venture Taranaki and also meeting the likes of Steve and being on board for this. So this is part of our behaviour change projects. So we've had some work over the last few years about behaviour change, and this is coming part of that. So electric vehicles, obviously there's quite a lot of interest because all of our seats are full, so that's awesome. So thank you for coming, because if you're not coming along to these events, it's highly unlikely that we're going to continue having them. So please keep aboard and let us know as well what you want to know about so that we can start delivering on those things, not only us as Sustainable Taranaki, but alongside the District Council and also with Venture Taranaki, because we can only but grow this kaupapa and keep it moving forward. So just a small brief before I pass on to Conrad here. What we've got going on in South Taranaki is a little bit of a fight for us as well. So we've got community gardens starting. So we've just had our community garden event yesterday at the St. Mary's Anglican Church, which is pretty cool that we've had heaps of momentum with 20 people coming along, and you can find us on Facebook and there'll be heaps going on. So term 2 of the school term, we'll have Tauri School, Hawera High School, the intermediate, Turuturu. So we are growing that momentum, and we're also going to start moving out to other areas. So Manoa is interested in a community garden, Opuneki. We're also doing the Together We Grow film, which is going to be about a small community in Lower Hutt, and they have created a film about community resilience. So that's being screened out at Stratford next week on the 13th, and it'll be really cool if you want to come out there or touch base and find out a little bit more. And we're going to keep screening that as we go. So please, I'd like to just thank you again. Help yourself to some of the food because it is there, and I'll pass over to Conrad. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Andrea. So thank you guys all for coming along tonight. For those of you who don't know, what Electricarna has been in the past has been Steve Hobo-Tuck here has put on a EV showcase for people to come look at electric vehicles and have a go on them, kind of coinciding with Americana, trying to, just sort of spread the word there. So obviously this year, unfortunately, we had to cancel the Electricarna event alongside with Americana being cancelled, which is where our idea to sort of come up with a way we can still talk about EVs and still share some knowledge and share some experiences from some local people that drive them. So I'm just going to talk for 1 or 2 minutes about sort of what I do at Venture Taranaki and where the interest in EVs comes from, and then I'll pass on to Steve to get to the information you're really here for. And also, just before we get going, I'm going to do this karakia. This is one that we do at Venture Taranaki. Feel free to join along if you know it, otherwise that's all good. Ko ranganui I tu iho nei, ko papa tonuku I takito aki nei, arahina mai mato, I roto I o kurua, kuruai aroha, moa ki tonu, tihei, moriora. Cool. So today we have, as I mentioned before, Steve Hobo-Tuck, who is the organizer of Electricarna speaking. Hamish Scott and Alan Duffman's on this list, unfortunately, have not been able to make it this week. They've been isolating during COVID, but we still have Andy Bassett, Peter Hewitt, and Al Barker to talk to you guys as well about a range of different things. So quickly, just looking at what Venture Taranaki focuses on. I'm part of the regional strategy and sectors team, and our two regional strategies that we work towards at the moment are Tapuairoa and Taranaki 2050. Tapuairoa is our more kind of traditional economic development approach. This was created in 2017, and Taranaki 2050 came about after the government put in the ban on new oil and gas exploration permits. So that was when we thought we need to start planning for what we want the future to look like and start looking a little further than purely economic growth people. So this is largely looking at low emissions and a sort of transition to what our future economy looks like. So to work on these two strategies together, we've done a lot of work to consolidate them and work to a single action list. And this is the kind of on a page, easy view of how we look at our strategic direction. So the vision is a high value, low emissions economy built on inclusivity and sustainability with the three focus areas of progressive communities, industry transformation, and skills entrepreneurship and innovation. What we're doing here tonight probably sits more in the progressive communities or industry transformation space. Cool, so I'll move on, so I'll hand it to Steve now and he can get into the real meat of this.
All right. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Steve Hobo-Tuck. I am from the Better New Zealand Trust. The Better New Zealand Trust is a trust that is promoting the uptake of electric vehicles in New Zealand, and I'm what's called a champion. It's my job to come out and do what I'm doing tonight. Just out of curiosity, how many people in the room, apart from the obvious, audio only? Okay, good. A lot of converts. Great. So these responses here are from the people. When you guys filled in your forms, you are asked these questions, and this is the responses that we had. And as we can see, the main thing is, of course, the running costs. And of course, with the trouble in Eastern Europe at the moment, the price of fuel is starting to go up. And
sorry, Steve. Carol, I just need to double check something.
Sure.
With the, sorry guys, we had some audio issues last time, and I just want to make sure that we don't have the same today. Cool. Actually, all good to go.
Excellent. So as you can see, running costs is the main thing, but closely followed by the environment, which is great to see, because we've only got one planet. All right, let's get them now.
That's my fault. Right, the clicking out of the Zoom. Do you go, Steve?
Oh, thank you. Okay, so here we have the main use, and as you can see, short trips and running short errands in town. Okay, so most of you probably live within 10-15 minutes of work, so you're probably doing like 30k. Maybe you're doing 30k there and 30k back, depending on where you are and what you're doing. But generally speaking, short trips and running short errands in town is what you would use the EV for, which is great because petrol vehicles use a lot of fuel up and around town. If you go on a long trip in a petrol vehicle, they're a lot more economic than if you're running around town. So ideal. And of course, the main barrier is always going to be the cost. Now, my EV that I own, which is, I actually bought it as a business vehicle 5 years ago. It cost me $19,000 and $3,000 trade, which I organised, and so it cost me $16,000. Now, if I wanted to sell it today, it'll be worth $30,000. So they don't drop much, and that's not a huge expense. You can buy a reasonably nice Ford Falcon for that sort of money if you were that way inclined. So And my vehicle is a Nissan Leaf, right? So it's the absolute most basic EV you can buy. Mine's the standard version. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. It doesn't have any cruise control. It doesn't have any anything for running my phone or anything like that. It just runs. Okay, so that's why I purchased it, because I'm in IT, and there is a little phrase in IT: keep it simple, stupid. The simpler the vehicle, the less problems you're going to have with it. Okay, so this is why I'm here today, because you guys need to know about the costs. I'm not so much keen on the subsidies, but what I can do is give you information on charging locations and just generally what it's like to own an EV. So what is an EV? Okay, so there are several different types, and Pete will actually go over this in more detail. Basically, there's 3 different types. There's a battery electric vehicle, which is a vehicle that's powered solely by what we call a traction battery. There's a PHEV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, which is an electric motor and which has the capacity to charge in your garage at home, but also has a petrol motor as well. And then there's your full hybrid. Okay, so this is an actual EV, and that you can see this is very similar to the Leaf in that you've got a battery under the floor, and you've got a traction motor in here which drives the front wheels. So that's the basis, absolute basic version of an EV. And why do we buy them? Firstly, because they're cheap to run. My EV, I just drive into the garage at night. If I've done more than 50k for the day, I will pop the hood, plug it in, set the timer to kick on at 10 o'clock, because that's when my food power kicks in, and it will take probably 5 hours, 3 to 5 hours, depending on how much I've used it during the day, to charge up. And so when it's doing that, I'm probably watching telly, and then off to bed, and I get up in the morning, got a full tank ready to go. No or low emissions. When I'm charging my vehicle, I'm not using any coal, because people often bring this up to me as a reason why not to do it. And I say no, because the coal is used between 6 and 9 at night. Okay, because that's the high use. So that's when they kick the coal in to make sure that everybody gets the power they need to cook their dinner and heat their houses and that sort of thing. So most people who own EVs are charging them in the middle of the night when the coal use has stopped. They are very quiet, very fast. Okay? If you've ever been for a ride on a Tesla, you know what I'm talking about. But at least not that far behind, a Leaf will beat most V8s off the line up to about 80k. Okay, so if that's what you're into, a good vehicle to get. Very energy efficient. Okay, so very simply, and people will actually talk about this in a bit more detail later on, but very simply, battery in the EV, 90% of the electricity in the battery is used to power the car, whereas with a petrol car, you're lucky if it be 40%. Okay, I've heard some figures as 13%, but that sounds a bit ridiculous, really. So, so it makes them very economic to run. Yes, that higher purchase price is correct for most EVs, especially if you're wanting to get into the Tesla and the Audi and that sort of area. And yes, the range is limited. So if you said to me what would be the best EV to get, I say get one that you use to doing the sports trips, bringing the kids around, going visit man across towns, going to do the supermarketing, use it. And that can apply to any living situation, rural or urban, because you've got that that vehicle. All you'll have to do is just plug it into the hay shed every couple of days and charge it up. And I tell you now, I cannot tell you the last time I noticed the power in my power bill was up because I charged the car. I would say if it was maybe $20 a month, yeah, about $20 a month would be how much power I would use to charge my car. And that's doing probably 40 to 50k on average a day. Okay, so equivalent 30 cents per litre. Well, this is obviously very old because the petrol was only since $2. So back in the 80s, when I had my diesel taxi, diesel was 49 cents a litre and I was the only cab driver making money. Okay, so imagine now if your petrol was 30 cents a litre, how much spare money you'd have. $80 to $100 a week that you wouldn't be spending just getting yourself moving around the town. So These are very, depending on your use case, this can vary quite a lot, but this is just to give you a rough idea. Okay, so you would save 1,600 a year. I know myself personally, I save about 2,500 a year. Maintenance costs, yes, because in the Leaf there are 200 moving parts, and an average petrol vehicle is about 2,200. So that's 2,000 things that can go wrong. Yeah, so here we go, total savings around 2,000, so that's reasonably accurate. How to buy an EV? All right, very straightforward. At the moment, now I know we're here promoting EVs, but at the moment, if you wanted to buy an EV, you're going to join a list, unless you get one, someone's trading up and their vehicle's arrived and they're flipping their older EV off. So at the moment, I would suggest that Trade Me is probably the best location, or Auto Trader, because there's not a lot of new EVs coming into the country for all sorts of reasons. Yes, generally are slightly more expensive than petrol. We've talked about that. And the other thing you can think about doing is the fuel money that you would normally put into your petrol vehicle, you can use that to buy yourself a slightly better EV. Okay, so if you are thinking, well, 24 kilowatt, 130k, I'd really like to double that. So then you can look at a 40 kilowatt and you're looking at 250k, but it might cost you a bit more money. So what you can do is put that money that you normally spend on fuel against it. Okay, so this is my story. This is a presentation I've done for a few different groups. So we're just going to run through it. That was my original car. And then I decided that spending $120 a week on fuel was starting to make it a little bit uneconomic to run a business. So I bought this 2015 Nissan Leaf. Mine is absolute bargain basement variety, the 24 kilowatt model, as I say, around 130k on a charge. And at the moment now, it's down to about 125k after 5 years. So they don't drop away as fast as people say. But then I'm a bit of a nano driver. So if you like to bury your foot, well, expect to pay probably extra 30 or 40 cents. Okay, so let's go through. These are the points I'm going to cover in the next few minutes. Charging, the design, trips I've done, advantages, and the price. And now, yesterday on Tuesday, someone asked me, why is your bonnet up? And EV drivers are just susceptible to myths, everybody else. Someone said, well, if your motor's hot, just lift that up. But the thing that's hot is actually sitting underneath my car. So, okay, so here we go, charging. So this is your charging cable. Now my charger, because I got mine 5 years ago, I just have an ordinary 3-pin plug, and it's got a spark plug. You know what I mean by a spark plug? They've got the bigger earth pin on the bottom of them that you usually plug in your big spark ball with. And that's because they run at 16 amps. So my charger runs at 16 amps. So I can charge up in 4 hours to 100%. It gives me up to 130k, depending on all sorts of variables that come into it. So you can buy Leafs that have an ordinary 3-pin plug. You can just plug into any power point anywhere in the country, and they only do 8 amps. So they take 8 hours to charge. So make sure you remember to plug it in before you go to bed at night, and you'll be staying with Nan another day. Fast charging. As you can see, I just charged up tonight. First time for a long time pulled up for a charge. There's a Tesla sitting there. But luckily he just finished and he was just grabbing a drink at the back and so I didn't have to wait too long for him to come out. And then he should roll up after with Big Andy. So that charge has made some money tonight. So anyway, here you go. You plug it in. This one here is what we call Chatamo. This is the charger that you would use if you were fast charging. You only really use fast charging if you're traveling. Generally speaking, if you're going to charge your Leaf or your any EV, you're probably going to charge it at home in the garage or run a cable out into a shed or whatever. And here we are, charging stations. And here we are in beautiful Hara. These orange ones, that is the, these are the fast chargers. So there's one here. Oh, it's one in Manaia. Okay, didn't know that. Hara, I've used Opanaki in Plymouth, and if we go further south, there's one in Waverley as well. So I've driven to Wellington and back using my 24 kilowatt. It took a wee while, but we did get there. ChargeNet, these guys, we should, you know, we're not worthy. We should bow down and thank these guys because they've gone ahead and built a charging network in New Zealand that's second to none in the world. And every day they go in and they put more chargers in. And when I first bought my Leaf, I got in touch with ChargeNet and I said, look, you know, I bought my Leaf and I'm really keen for you to put a charger in at Mocal. I said, yeah, only be a couple of years. It went in August last year. All right. So now it's there. So we're really grateful. 50 kilowatt charger, you can whip in there, plug it in, go and grab a white baked fritter and a coffee. And by the time you finish that, come back, your car's charging and carry on to keep working. So thank you, ChargeNet. They had a lot of trouble convincing the locals that it was a good idea. But once they did, they moved quickly. Okay, so this is what you see when you fire up your Leaf. This is an English dashboard, so forget about the miles. I know it looks terrible in 63, you think, but that's miles. So over here is your temp, right? At the moment, mine's on 5 bars. Every time you charge your Leaf, fast charge it, it'll go up 1 bar. Okay. This here is your power and regeneration graph. Okay, so if you decide to floor it off the lights, all this here turns all white lights all the way through here. And you don't hear any noise. So the car just goes incredibly fast. And then when you get to a hill and you start going down it, and you're going down a little bit quick, like when you get a ticket, you put your foot on the brake, these go green. And when they go green, what you're doing is your wheels are putting power back into the battery. So you get mileage back. Regeneration, it's called. Here we have indicators for various things. That just tells me I'm on park, I'm in eco mode. The car's done 18,921 miles, and you can use this to monitor how far you've traveled. But this will also tell you what's going on. This bar here, this line here on the side here, this is your battery health, okay? And this goes down over time. And when I say over time, I mean like over like 10 years. So when I bought my Leaf, the maximum you can have is 12 bars. My Leaf had 11 bars. And after 6 months, it went down to 10 bars, and it's been 10 bars ever since. And that means that my car is around 80% efficient at the moment. Yes, Andy.
Also, if your door wasn't perfect, then reading the middle would show you the percentage of the battery.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes, this box in here is what Andy's talking about. This has a variety of information that you can get out of it. But yes, at the moment, if I had the door shut, it would be a lot better. Okay. And here we go again. And the door is still open. In case you're wondering. So this is what my car looks like inside, except I don't have this fancy gizmo here. Mine's just absolutely plain. So this is the mouse. This is your transmission lever here. You go back and up for reverse, over and down for a drive, over and down for super fast. Okay, that's this here. Just flick it around. Here's your heated seat controller. So for those of you who like heated seats, and if you can't actually see it, but behind the steering wheel is a heated steering wheel control. Yes, it's very nice. Now these 4 little buttons here are used for controlling this, how this looks. Here's your Speedo up here. They put it there so you can't miss it. So when the cop pulls you over and says, do you realise you're doing 180k in a 50k zone? You can't say no, because it would have been right in front of you right there. Now this little thing here is a tree indicator. The tree indicator is, what's that about is that that's encouraging you to drive economically. My record is 5 trees. Okay, so I'm driving along. This is when I went to Tokumara and I drove along at 60k for about 2.5 hours. Have you ever been to Tokumara up the Aotearoa Road? You can't go any faster than 60k unless you're a tanker. So yeah, that was very interesting. I had no mud on the bottom of my car when I got there because the tanker tracks were so deep that the bottom of my car was skidding along. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And just a standard ordinary door controllers and that sort of thing here. There's no handbrake in my car. You got a handbrake in yours, Andy? Oh yeah, we've got a foot park brake. So EVs have this at least have a foot park brake, so you can't actually see it unfortunately, but yeah, I never use it, just put it in the park. All right, here's a cutaway. This is very quickly, I just wanted to show you. This is the battery, right, all the way through there and right across to the other side. So your whole floor pan in your car that you're sitting on is the battery. Okay, Tesla's These are in the same place, so it means great handling because the central gravity is really low. Here's the motor. You know, and I said my Leaf is simple, but look at all this in here. Yeah, so they are simple, but they are complex as well. Here's a charging flap here, okay, and here's your high voltage cables here. That's why they're orange. Things don't play with them. All right, so trips away. This is where I've been in my Leaf, and I would estimate my 24 kilowatt Leaf. Okay, keep in mind 24 kilowatt. It can do 320k a day. If I do more than that, the battery gets too hot and it's difficult to charge. So 320 is heaps. You know, I'm 62. The blade is calling at about 280. So I don't really. I'm quite happy to do 320k a day. So Whanganui, that was quite easy. I just topped up at Hawera, topped up at Waverley, and then I was there done. Okuni, Taupo. I'll tell you about this Taupo. You're gonna love this. My daughter, I was on a farm, right? And you remember the old days we used to get beasts, right? Well, she got a beast. She said, you can have half a beast. And I said, oh, let's go and get it. So let's take the lead. Wife's face fell. And I said, no, it'll be great fun. Now, keep in mind, this was 4 years ago. So guess what? There's no charger and no-out. So which way did I have to go? Down to Whanganui, down to Bulls, up to Mangakino, Tai Happy, all the way to Rangi, round the lake, to where my daughter was. Guess how long it took? Close, but no cigar. 10 hours. Now, my wife is get in the car and get there as quick as you can, and if you have to stop to go to the toilet, you're a weakling type person. And I'm a more like, I go, you know, my thing is I enjoy the journey, not the destination type of driver. So you can imagine that my wife's state of mind was not great, especially when she realised that the next day we'd have to do it all again. So, but we did get home with the meat, and it was all cold, and you know, so it was okay. Right, what are the advantages? We've touched on most of them. Cheap to run, very easy to drive. Just you can put it in D. I just put one DE code, so I can get as far as I want to go. And fun to drive. People forget that this is fun to drive because firstly, there's no engine noise. Like when my wife drives it, I said, "How do you like driving the Leaf?" She said, "No, I don't really like it." I said, "Why?" I said, "Because the motor doesn't tell me what's going on." I said, "You're sitting in the seat, you're holding the wheel." She said, "No." So she's not a convert. I've managed to get her to a hybrid, so I figure that's as far as she's going to go. Spacious. Okay. I'm not a small guy. I'm not a skinny guy. And I can fit in it quite nicely. And when I've set my seat up for myself in the front, I can hop in the back and I've still got that much space between my knee and the back of the seat. Okay. If you want to come out and look at it later, you'll see I've got a kiddie seat in there for my grandchild. No problem at all. I could put another one in there with a booster seat in the middle. And yeah, five people in there, no problem at all. And reliable. 5 years. I think the worst calamity I've had is I had to replace the back wiper because the cop stopped me and said it's not working properly. I said, okay. So that's pretty good. Here we go, just for those people who are into the figures. Okay, up there, my annual running cost, $1,600, which includes $90 a month charging. Okay, it's not just running costs, it's everything. So if I bought a tyre, $180. Good for 30,000k. All right, wipers, $80 for all three. I made a joke the other day about Tesla wipers. I'm not going to make it again, so I won't make it. Cabin filter, $50 plus fitting, which is minimal. And here, every 50,000k, I go in for a service, and it costs me $240 every 3 years, and that's it. All right. The servicing industry has not worked out a way to get more money out of EV drivers yet, but I'm sure it's coming. I use a guy in Plymouth, Rotec Automotive, and they've fully embraced the EV ethos. In fact, it's even got an EV for a loaner. So it's coming. The mechanics are picking up on it, and yeah. And you've got Jimmy here, and he's been through that on them. So Sue's here. Hi, how are you? Now, those of you who are thinking about purchasing a Leaf when they become more readily available, this is probably the most important slide for you to take note of. Okay, this is what we call use case, because every new movement has its own little ethos, and this is ours. Okay, so these are the questions that you should be asking yourself. How far do you travel daily? Do you want to do long trips in it? How many side trips do you make? Like, you're coming home and you think, oh, I've got no milk and butter, so you walk over to the supermarket and grab stuff. Okay, so that sort of thing you've got to think of. School and sports drop-offs, is that going to be a good thing for you? Charging at home or at fast chargers? And I would say 90% of you will want to charge at home because firstly, it's really convenient. You never have to worry about, you just plug it in and go to bed and get up in the morning and it's ready to go. But some people may be in a situation where they can't plug in. I can't think where and how that would be, but if you're in that situation, you can go and charge up at the fast chargers. I just charged my car, cost me $8. And that was driving from Plymouth to here from 100%, and I got down to about 35. And you can you use financing for a longer range EV using your saved petrol money, which I put together earlier. Okay, so you recognise that car? We have a Bmw i3 owner in the room. Tell us about the Bmw i3. Why did you get that?
Well, okay, first of all, it's a 2014, okay, it's not new. I looked at it, I looked at this on and I decided on this one because, well, my family died in the war and break my wallet.
BMW break my wallet.
And I did a lot of research online. I looked at a lot of YouTube videos, and I was a little bit skeptical because it looks pretty small.
Yeah.
And basically, I mean, it does have 4 doors, but it's basically a 2-door car with 2 back doors, suicide doors, or as the manufacturers would like to say, clamshell.
Yes. Yes, I can verify that the BMW i3 is small in the back because I've been in the back.
Yeah. Well, I have 4 large dogs, and Andy can attest to that, and they all I do actually put the back seat down for them, but I can squish them all onto the back seat with the seat locked down. I was just thinking the most annoying thing about the i3 is that you have to back it in to the charger to actually charge it up.
Right.
But the nicest thing about it, apart from, I mean, it really does have all the bells and whistles, and I bought that one because I thought the actual car itself is something that's not going to date very quickly at all because it's already like state of the art. And I would prefer to buy a battery line to another battery for it.
Right.
But the really nicest thing is I took it to the mechanic for something completely different, a stone in the brake from Roadworks, and all the mechanics said, "Oh, can we drive it, please? Can we just sit in it and drive it?" And
Yeah,
it
isn't that
was-
good?
They were so enthusiastic.
Positive attitude, that's what we need.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
standard focus from my
All right. Okay, so finally, I've just put up here some prices. These prices are probably down a little bit now because of the trouble we're having in Eastern Europe at the moment. Prices are starting to go back up. Less vehicles are coming in, therefore, supply and demand, the prices start to go up. This is a 40 kilowatt model. You can see it's a little bit more modern looking. Okay, so if you had a use case where you're only doing 30K a day, then you could look at this one up here and you're only paying $8,000, right? Because with a 90K range. So you could drive it, let's say you could drive it for 3 days and then charge it. So there you go. That's quite a reasonable purchase, and you're getting what you want. You just have to be aware of the limitations. So I guess that's what it falls down to at the end of the day.
So Steve, what year would that be?
That's a 2011. Yeah. Okay, hybrids. All right. Anyone here got a Prius or anything like that? Or hybrid of any type?
I had
Yep.
one.
Yep. So the great thing about hybrids are, especially the Prius, is they've been around since 1998. So try to know how to make them really, really well. They don't break down, even though they've got 2 motors in them. So, you know, they're a good option. And there's a lot of really nice Prius examples out there. If that's something that you prefer, some people like it because they're worried about the fact that it's electric motor. They don't really know about them, but they know petrol. We've had it for over 100 years, so it's a good option to look at if that's the way you want to go. Keep in mind that you can use them past the battery life cycle. The battery doesn't have to be replaced in a hybrid. But having said that, your mileage will then drop to a standard petrol mileage, because what happens with the battery when it's not working is that the little electric motor isn't helping the car when you're running around town doing shopping rounds. Okay. So here they have a range of around 800 on average. Now, the hybrid that my wife owns, that does about the same. It's a Honda Desert, which is a SUV. So for those of you who are having hip problems, that's another option. Look at the ones that are up off the ground a little more. But this is the main issue. They are complex due to having 2 engines. But having said that, you know, the people that are making them are pretty good at doing it. Honda and yes, Andrea.
Something that I noticed, like being a mum with 2 kids and being part-time lifestyle, is that I watched an Instagram post from a lady who works in a sheep and beef farm down south, and she drives a Highlander hybrid. And the nice thing about that for her was that it worked well within farm life and her day-to-day operations was supplying the the shearers with the meals on the farm, but then she could whip to town and be part of the EV community there and charge up, and she was doing that. And I think that it's important that, like Steve was talking about, and I'm sure you'll talk about it later, is that there are utes coming through, but at the moment there are limitations. So this is an absolute ability to keep an eye out on those hybrid models. I did talk to Toyota about coming along as well, but they weren't available. So they do have the hybrid models here in Tauranga. So that is an option for our farming.
Absolutely, the RAV4, the Camry, the Prius. I just use the Prius because it's one that everybody knows. You know somebody who's got one, so that's why we put that in there. So here we go. Yes, the utes that we have out there couldn't rip the skin off of rice pudding. Right? No good for farmers who need the power to do the things they need to do, but they are coming. So, and these companies are all looking at doing it: Ford, Tesla, Rivian, Toyota, and there is one in New Zealand. If you go to YouTube and Google LDV EV60, you will see a review there by a New Zealand guy, Gavin Shoebridge, and he talks about what it is like to drive one and what sort of capacity they have. But at the moment, they're not a huge capacity. Only was it 1,500?
It's only 1,000.
1,000. Yeah. So whereas the Ford 150s are doing 4,500 kilos. So for towing. EVs can tow. A lot of Teslas around fitted with tow bars. In fact, I've got a mate who that's all he does. He's carrying a couple of tow bars on Teslas. So it can be done. But that's why when I talk to people, especially from the rural community, we haven't really met this need yet. So that's what I'm saying. Well, if you want to get into EVs, get mum into one, to run running around town, keep the diesel ute. At least you're contributing to reducing the CO2 in the atmosphere, and you can still function as a unit. So that's good. Okay, so if you are keen, you do not have to own an EV to join these groups. All you have to do is be respectful and ask questions you need to ask. 9 times out of 10, the question that you ask has already been asked and someone will answer it straight away or point you somewhere where you can find the answer. Now, this is me here, Taranaki EV Owners Group. So I'm happy to take any of you guys on board, no problem at all. Just go to the group and click join group and I'll click you in as soon as I see you. Then you can talk to local people, but the New Zealand EV Owners Group, and there's also one just for Nissan Leafs, there's one just for Teslas, that's getting very sort of, everybody's got their own little group now. But this one here is the original, and a lot of information is on the site just for people who want to learn more. Like that. So yeah, that's us, and that's me. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for that, Steve. Up next, we've got Peter here, and Peter is an engineer, which will be reflected in his presentation. Sorry about that. So Peter's got some more technical knowledge to go through as well as his own experience traveling with his EV.
So, yeah, evening everyone. Yeah, I'm Peter here. We're just covering some general stuff about EVs. Lots of and fairly generic, lots of different types of EVs. So, sing out if you've got any questions or if the stuff's not that clear. Start with just to be clear on terminology. There's you have hybrids and petrol vehicles and EVs and stuff like that. So just to be clear about the types, we start on the left here. You've got a conventional internal combustion engine vehicle. Internal combustion engine is ICE. So if I say ICE vehicle, I mean a petrol diesel vehicle, and it's just that's liquid fuel and has a engine and drives the motor, drives the car along. Second one is a non-plug-in hybrid, so that's like the Prius, the original Prius. So it has a petrol motor that can drive the wheels or run the engine in reverse to generate power for the battery, or you can use the battery to drive the wheels. It goes both ways, but fundamentally, it's all the energy comes from the petrol fuel. Middle one is a plug-in hybrid, so it's like a hybrid, except you can also charge up the battery by plugging it in. So you can run it as on the electric side, or you can use petrol fuel. It tends to have a small battery, so it doesn't go far on the battery. The next one, again, another variation, is a vehicle. It's basically electric vehicle with a onboard charger. So it only drives through the electric motor off the battery, but it has a little petrol motor that will charge up the battery if you need to. There's a few of those around, and the one on the far right is a conventional electric vehicle. So it's only got a battery and an electric motor or two, and runs solely off the battery, and you charge up the battery by plugging it in. And yep, there's lots more EVs around in New Zealand now. This shows monthly registrations of new EVs in New Zealand, and you can see that back 2015, 2016, there weren't very many around. Picked up a bit last few years, and then the last year or so, it's taken off. There's quite a lot. So what are we getting off the order of? That's 1,500 vehicles registered per month in New Zealand of EVs, is electric vehicles, and that's the red line shows percentage, so that's around 5 or 6% of total vehicle registrations. And when we look at EVs, so there's EV cars, not motorbikes or anything else. The blue ones are the Nissan Leaf. Nissan Leaf is by far the most popular model in New Zealand. A lot of them are imported vehicles. If you read all the numbers, you can see the numbers in here. And the next one's Tesla, Hyundai, MG, BMW, Kia, Volkswagen. There's quite a few different makes in there. For some reason, the big makes aren't in there. You don't see Fords and General Motors and Toyotas and those guys. They don't make the EVs, but there's quite a few people who are. And there's plenty in Taranaki. So Taranaki we had at the end of March, 370 odd. For some reason, this is off the NZTA database, which doesn't register Stratford for some reason. I don't know. I know there are EVs in Stratford, so I guess we've got 400 odd in Taranaki. Sorry, MGs. What are it? 17 EVs registered in Taranaki. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's what we sold you.
Yeah. Oh, you sold them all.
Yeah, well, we're in Taranaki.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking someone might go somewhere else and buy one and bring it home. I don't know. Not allowed. Good. And like we said, there's quite a few models. So I've just done a bit of a plot here. I did warn you on my engineer, we do numbers and things like that. So I'm plotting across the bottom here is the purchase price, and up there is the range. So some vehicles are quite a bit more expensive, and MG is quite a good price point. It's a lot cheaper, but it still does quite a good range. There's quite a lot of vehicles in the 60 to 80,000 range, so it's less than 80,000, and they qualify for the rebate from the government. And there's quite a few makes to choose from.
we had 2 new models coming out.
Yeah. Yep.
June and July. so-
Yep. Yeah, so this is the one I just pulled off the MG New Zealand website. I pulled the data off there. And there's always new vehicles coming out. There's new MGs, there's new, I don't know, everything.
We've got about 16 orders already for the new one.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, yeah, there's, as Steve mentioned, there's a lot of demand at the moment. So most of the vehicles, when you want to buy one, you're going to be on a 6 months waiting list or something like that,
yeah.
3 months or
It's
6
not
months.
that- No, MG's pretty good.
Yeah.
So the first shipment that's coming, we've got 150 MGs Electricarna that are all sold.
Yeah.
And then a month later, there's another boat coming. with
Oh,
more.
good.
So we've got no hassles with getting stock at all.
Oh, that's good. Yep. So more fundamentals about EVs. With charging, there's lots and lots of different plugs around the world, but in New Zealand use, there's really just 2 classes of plugs.
Mm.
And most new vehicles will be having these ones at the top. And Japanese imports will be using the bottom ones, the Chattimos and that. And they come in 2 types because there's AC and DC. So AC is when you plug it in at home, you're alternating current. DC is the fast charger. You have the big charging station that you go to, and that gives a lot more kilowatts and charge a lot quicker. So there's 2 sockets there. Yeah, use that one if you're just doing the AC charging, whichever one you got, or this one if you go to the charging station. So we'll just go through some of the charging options. So the basic charging option is what we call a mobile connector. So it runs on a 3-pin plug. There's a few different variations. You might have a caravan plug or something like that, but generally it's AC and it's relatively low power. Your standard 3-pin plug is going to do just less than 2 kilowatts, but that's enough to give you 100 kilometers of range overnight. And most people will travel like 20 or 30 kilometers, probably more around Harborough, I guess. There's not many people who are traveling more than 100 kilometers every day. So you can charge that up overnight, no trouble. And charging overnight at home is free and easy. Not free, it's cheaper than a charging station. It's free if you've got some, there are some plans you can get for free electricity, but it's definitely cheaper than going to a charging station. Next step up is to have a wall connector at home. So this will be connected with a larger cable to your switchboard. It'll give you, instead of 2 kilowatts, it'll give you like 5 to 7 kilowatts, depending what you're doing. That'll do faster charging. It'll cost maybe 2 grand, maybe one grand to 3 grand, depending how much wiring is needed in your home and what device you're buying and all that sort of stuff. It varies a lot, but it costs you some money. Yeah,
Average about 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of people doing it less than that, but it does vary a bit.
It varies.
I guess it's of the order of a grand or a bit under for the box itself. Then you've got to pay electrician to put it in and wiring and
The boxes, because I've got them at work already for sale, the boxes are at least 2 grand.
yeah. There's lots of different ones around. Yeah,
But they're the best sort.
yeah.
They're the world proven.
But that'll give you more. So it costs you some money, but it'll give you a lot more range, give you a lot more charging overnight. If you need to travel 300 kilometers every day. Other option is the AC charging point. So you see these around the place, some places. I don't know if there's some in Harborough.
They can say.
They can say.
Yep.
Yeah. So you need to bring your own cable, plug it in. It's relatively slow.
It is.
Warehouse has them too sometimes. Yep. So depends what it is. There are different ratings around available. Might be 5 or up to 20 kilowatts. So you'll put in maybe 30 kilometers of range in an hour. So it's not a lot, but it can be handy if you're stuck somewhere. So like Steve said, mostly people are going to charge at home overnight. A lot of people just have a 3-pin plug it in, charge it up overnight. It's very convenient. It's the lowest cost option. But you can't do that when you're traveling long distance. So there's charging stations to use for that. And charging it has most of them. And they look basically like one like that. There's 2 cables, but there's only 1 charger. So those 2 cables, one of them is a Chattimo and one of them is a Type 2 CCS. So only 1 car can charge at a time, even though you've got 2 cables.
why I had to wake Steve.
Yeah. So these ones, most of them are sort of like 50 kilowatts. There's some that are 25, there are some that are more. 50 kilowatts is going to give you around 300 kilometers of range if you're there for an hour. You don't have to be there for an hour. Typically, when we're traveling, you plug it in up while you're having lunch or morning tea or something. Just top it up as you're going.
And you can stop it at any time, can't
That's
you?
right. Yeah, charge as much as
You
you
don't
want.
have to wait for it to finish. Right?
No. So that's a map of the charge net stations in the North Island. So they're pretty much all over, except there's only one in New Plymouth, which is so we're a bit lacking. We had a real problem. That's the Mokau one. We had a real gap there until Mokau went in.
This is a little bit forward thinking, but is there an app that tells you?
Yes.
when there's
Yes.
charging points up?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I'll come to that in a minute. Yep.
So with EVG, part of the service is what we do, we put the app on our client's phone. And and then you can plan the truck. to the
Yep.
apps.
Yeah, I've got a slide about it in a minute. Yep. Yep.
Sorry.
So charging etiquette, it's important to play nicely. There's only so many charging spaces around. Take turns. Yeah, be kind. It's public resources. Don't use the charging station as a parking spot because someone else will want to come and charge. It's not very good. You can actually monitor the charge when you have an app on your phone. If you're using a ChargeNet one, you can have a ChargeNet app on your phone and it'll give you a ping when you're charged up. It'll tell you how you're going when you start and stop it. You can leave a note on your dashboard so that people can get hold of you if they need to, or you can use a plug share app and you can actually put a message in there. People can see that the station's in use and who to contact. They can contact you through the plug share app without getting your cell phone number or anything like that. Another thing that's good practice is only charge to 80%. So most vehicles will charge much more rapidly up to 80%, then much more slowly up to 100%. So it's actually, if you're going a long distance, you're better off having a couple of extra stops and going up to 80% than to try and get up to 100% because you're just going to waste lots of time. Plus, if you're charging up to 100% and someone else wants to charge in there, they'll be getting really brassed off because you're taking lots of time.
Especially if you've got an Audi e-tron.
Yeah.
2 hours to charge.
Take lots to charge. So it's good practice to only charge 80% if you're on a charger. The e-stop is only for an emergency. You don't use it as a normal stop because then the machine's out of action until it gets reset. And don't unplug other vehicles. That's very rude. Plus, a lot of vehicles will actually lock the charging socket in there, so you'll break something to try and unplug it.
A Tesla owner unplugged me once.
Terrible. So here we just got a couple of slides, just sort of my opinions of ICE vehicles versus EVs. And as Steve mentioned, it's quite different to drive. The electric motor is very responsive. As soon as you put your foot down, it goes. It's very much more fun to drive like that. And there's no gears. It's the same gear the whole way through over the whole speed range. You don't change gears. There's no automatic. It's really smooth. It is quiet and smooth. There's no noise or clunkiness like that. Maintenance. You don't have any oil changes or oil filters or cam belts or valve timing or anything like that. You just get tires. Tires still wear out as you drive on the road. Brakes, I guess you need to maintain brakes at some stage. Well, I was talking to the Tesla service guy and he was maintaining that out of all the Teslas in Australia and New Zealand, they've never had to replace any brake pads because they never wear out because it's always done with regenerative braking, not brake pads. Which is the next point about their regenerative braking. I mean, from an energy point of view, it's much more, I like the fact that I'm regenerating energy rather than just wasting it through brakes. You can refuel at home. You don't have to go to a petrol station to refuel, which is something I didn't realize until I had an EV, just how convenient it is to just plug it in and charge it overnight from home. It is really nice. Another aspect that's different is the exhaust gases. A nice vehicle produces exhaust gases, which I'm sort of conscious of, especially if it's around kids. So the exhaust gases will have particulates and NOx, carbon monoxide, all sorts of other nasties in there, which yeah, I'd just prefer not to have that personally. Greenhouse gases, that's another reason in there. With a ICE vehicle, you need to run the engine if you want to get the heater or the aircon going inside the car, but that's not the same with the EV. EV you can run it either which means you can actually, if you set your machine, your EV to charge up overnight, so it's ready to go in the morning, you can actually set, most EVs, you can set it to do the heating or cooling at the same time. So it'll be ready, warmed up to go at 7 in the morning when you want to go, and you can drive off, which is really a nice luxury. There we go. So
You just sold my wife.
yeah, it's very nice to jump in the car and it's nice and warm. You don't have to drive for 10 minutes before it warms up.
Just about get to Stratford in the morning and it's just warm.
Yeah.
And get it to a freezing cold bath.
Yeah. So this one is a chart of efficiency. There's a website called Flip the Fleet that is a voluntary thing. People who own EVs can submit their data from use of their vehicle, and they're monitoring. They're doing a whole pile of research on battery degradation, battery health, efficiency of EVs, and all that sort of stuff. There's a pile of data they're doing, and this is some of it. So over a few years, we've got 2019 to 2022, and we've got different vehicles. There's an awful lot of variation. It depends how you drive. Same as an ICE vehicle. If you drive with a heavy foot, then you're going to use more fuel. If you drive longer distances and stuff, you're going to use more fuel. If you're careful, then it's less. So there's a lot of scatter, but the different makes will also perform differently. One of the interesting bits is that the EVs are a lot more efficient in summer than in winter. In winter, you use more energy. When the battery's cold, it needs more energy, plus you're running the heater and stuff like that. Where in summer, that's a lot more efficient. And that's what this bit is. But overall, I mean, the middle there, we're doing about, in this case, 7 units here, 7 kilometers per kilowatt hour, roughly. But it varies a bit around that. So I've just done some calculations comparing costs, similar to what Steve just put up before. So if you assume we've got a petrol vehicle that's doing 7 litres per 100 kilometres, which is sort of average. Some do better, some do a lot worse. And we're lining that up against the EV of 7 kilometres per kilowatt hour, which was about mid-range. So assuming you're paying $3 a litre for petrol and against about 20 cents a unit for electricity. Again, electricity, sometimes you'll be more expensive, sometimes it'll be less expensive. Generally, you should be able to get a power plan that will be 20 cents a kilowatt hour or better. Some have free stuff now, I think. So many hours overnight. So that works out at about 20 cents a kilometre for fuel for the ICE vehicle and about 3 cents a kilometre for the EV. So over a year, assuming you do 12,000 kilometres in a year, you've got about $2,500 worth of fuel for your ICE vehicle against about 300 for your EV. Like Steve said, at 300, yeah, I mean, what's that? That's $30 or a bit less per month on the electricity bill, which is not unbearable. Personally, we didn't notice it on the power bill, but you definitely noticed you don't have to pay all that petrol out of your Visa card. What have we got? So how are we going for time?
Pretty good one.
All right, so far. Sing out if you've got any questions we go through. So we've just got a couple of slides here about a road trip we did, just to give some illustration of how you can do this sort of thing. The Better New Zealand Trust that Steve mentions organises an EV road trip about every year, but it's been disrupted with COVID the last couple of years. And it's a very informal thing. Basically, a pile of EV people go and drive around New Zealand for a few days. And we joined one. They did a stretch from Hastings up around East Cape. They actually started up in Rotorua, but we joined them down here. So we drove from New Plymouth across to Gisborne in one day, which was, it's a long drive till you get there, but we got there okay. So we drove from New Plymouth down to Bulls, stopped for morning tea at Bulls, plugged in and charged there at the charger while we had morning tea for 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. Then we went to Hastings. The Hastings is a charging station there where we stopped for lunch. Like I said, that's where we joined the EV road trip. So there's dozens of EVs there all at once, stopping for lunch. We caught up with them. And then we drove on up to Gisborne. Then we had a day or so around Gisborne, drove around East Cape, and then came back from Gisborne back to New Plymouth in a day. So again, the concept is you sort of plan ahead and decide to stop at a charging station that has a cafe or something like that, and you choose that for your lunch stop or your morning tea stop or something.
The
And
great thing with the longer range EVs is you can do what's called leapfrogging, where if you come up and there's a charge and there's 3 cars lined up, you just carry on to the next one because you have enough mileage to do it.
yeah, and you don't charge completely full and you don't run completely empty. You run around the middle of the range and you've got a buffer to work with if you need to. So that's where we were at Hastings. There's a Tesla Supercharger at Hastings. Like I said, there was a road trip, so there's lots of EVs there, including a whole pile of Teslas. So that was so that's actually the set of Model 3s. So that's Rob from Wellington. He's got a performance model. That's Mark from up north of Auckland. He's got the standard range, and that's fine when we've got a long range. So that all charging at once there. Charges. So we're after going all the way over there, we're getting fairly down empty, about 20% or so. So we charged up to about 90% while we had lunch.
How long does that take to get to 90% on a supercharger?
Quicker than I can eat my lunch.
Yeah.
It's like 20 to 25 minutes or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. So
And what would that have cost?
I can't remember, 10 or 15 bucks, something like that. Generally, yeah, I figure a lot of these places where we stop, we spend more on the coffee and morning tea than we do on the.
That's where your petrol money goes, folks.
So we've just got another couple of shots here of charging stations at Tokumara Bay. There's a charging station there. So that's one of the smaller ones. It's a 25 kilowatt. Ruatoria, Te Arawa. And we all stopped for lunch, the whole pile of EVs there. We've got a Kona and a Model X and a few others. Stopped for lunch. That's a Otaki on the way back. Wairā. So yeah, you have an app on your phone and you know where these are and you can top up as you go through. And yeah, we've planned to do morning tea stops or toilet stops just where there's a charger.
Is that dirt I see in your car?
Yeah, don't get to clean up when I'm on a road trip. Waverley, that's that. Yeah, so it was a trip around. Any questions about traveling? Luke?
You mentioned before about a charging station where if one car is charging on a certain charger, then you can't charge another car at the same time on the other charger. I didn't know that.
Oh, so that's the standard 50 kilowatt one I've got. Yeah, like in the picture, the charge network. Yep. Yeah. So there's two cables, but one's a Chattima and one's a Type 2 CCS, and you only use one at a time. Yep. So there's some others that bring in the HPCs and stuff like that that have more cables and they can charge more cars at once.
The hyper power chargers coming on.
Yeah. I see this one for New Plymouth.
Yeah, I know. Amazing, yeah.
Where's it going?
I'm not sure. No one's saying.
Okay.
No, it's with the low energy budget.
Sorry?
Who's paying for that? It's not charged.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a ChargeNet one, yeah.
It is charged.
Yeah.
I think that the government's chipping in.
Yeah. Most of them are sponsored by IKEA, or partly sponsored by IKEA. Just got a bit talking about hydrogen vehicles. There's a lot of talk about hydrogen vehicles coming in. So just to compare the technology, electric vehicle, I mean, you have electricity, whether it's from solar or from the grid, and you put it in the battery and that drives the car. Hydrogen, you're taking the same electricity, but you're using a separator electrolysis to produce the hydrogen, which you've been storing somewhere. Then you've got to distribute it, storing it again, then it's put in your vehicle. So the vehicle has some bottles or cylinders to store hydrogen, which is then used in a fuel cell to make electricity, which is driving the motor, just like that electric vehicle. So there's quite a bit more technology involved in hydrogen. The other thing about hydrogen is that it takes more energy to go through and convert the electricity to hydrogen, then take the hydrogen back to electricity. And if you start with 100 units of electricity at the top, and you go through get a bit of loss through the grid, you get a bit of losses converting it AC/DC conversion, and it's about 90% efficient when you're using it on the road. So you end up with about 70 units of energy actually used to drive the vehicle down the road. On the other hand, if you put it through a hydrogen vehicle, it takes energy to convert it into from electricity into hydrogen and back again. You end up with around 20 kilowatt hours of energy actually to drive the vehicle down the road. So you need about 3 times as much energy to use a hydrogen vehicle as opposed to just a straight electric vehicle. So hydrogen has other advantages. You can charge up a lot quicker. You can use a pump to pump up the tank a lot quicker. Also, there's some advantages in that you can make the hydrogen off peak, then store it and use it on peak. But yeah, it still has this fundamental thermodynamic problem to it.
Your car has to be intrinsically safe.
Sorry?
Your car has to be intrinsically safe.
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah. So they were putting in hydrogen vehicle, and Norway's ahead of the world pretty much in terms of vehicles. They put a lot of incentives for hydrogen and EVs, and yeah, most of their vehicles are non-ICE vehicles. Hydrogen ones, they seem to be going off. I know they've had a couple of hydrogen charging stations blow up and stuff like that, so they've pulled them out.
Do you think, based on some of those differences, is there more room for hydrogen to have more of a use with heavy vehicles?
So I don't know. Even with heavy vehicles, it's still going to have that energy problem. So you're going to have to spend 3 times as much for your energy in a hydrogen truck as opposed to an electric truck. So there's
Seems like we're putting in all the moving parts that we said we're putting right back in the system. Oh, and we've made it possible so that only big companies can actually be in charge of all of this really cool technology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so I understand.
Yeah. Just so you understand. Yeah.
Are you saying that it supports the current existing model? Because that would make a lot of people very happy if we did that.
Yeah, well, that's a line of argument. So just a couple of points there. New EV owners, get the phone app. A lot of vehicles, your vehicle supplier will have an app. There's an MG app. Is it MG app? There's an MG app. There's a Tesla app. There's a whatever. You get a vehicle. It's a Leaf app, and it just helps you work with the vehicle. So you need to get that. You need to get the ChargeNet app because you can run your it'll tell you when you're charging up and what your count is and when it's finished and how it's going and all that sort of stuff. You can monitor it live on the app. There's another one called PlugShare, which is that one there that is a crowdsourced system. It'll show you where all the charging stations are. When you're using a charging station, you can use PlugShare to say that you're using and check in, and then other people will know that that charger is in use. And if everyone did that, that would be really good.
Remember to check out at the end.
Yeah.
I filled up, I charged up in Harbour and drove here, and then I sat down here and went to sort of make sure to check my messages. Oh, but it's just check out.
Someone will be cursing at you. Yeah. There's another one called a Better Route Planner. It's an app on your phone that you put in what vehicle you've got, how much battery, where you want to go, all that sort of stuff, and it'll work out how many charging stops you need to make on the way.
Unless you've got a Tesla, it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
This sounds silly, but if I've got an 87-year-old mother-in-law and I want to get her on an EV, she's not going to want to know about phone apps.
Yeah, well, it depends how many long trips she wants to do.
Probably very similar.
Yeah, is there something that is a lot easier for users that is not reliant on?
You don't need to do that, right? So I've got a 90-year-old father-in-law who's got an EV, and yeah, he doesn't have an app, he doesn't have a smartphone, he charges it up at home, he drives around town.
Yeah, cool. I just want to make sure that those that are maybe a little bit tech shy know that there is the ability that things work without phone apps and
Absolutely.
knowledge of where things.
All EVs are very good at reminding you that you may need to charge up.
Cool, thank
They
you.
beep and lights flash and all sorts of the things keep going until you get to a charger.
Yeah, and unless you're aware of these things, they're going to be questions of doubt.
Absolutely.
So if you're new EV owners, I'd recommend you get an account with ChargeNet and get one of their RFID tab fobs, and just makes it easy when you want to charge when you're going long distance. You don't have to have one, you can use the phone app, but just makes it easier. And like Steve said, you're going to do most of your charging at home anyway, so it's not such a big deal. Wall chargers, maybe, I mean, get one if you want, but you don't have to. Obviously, they do cost a bit of money.
So you put in a standard spark plug and or a what they call a commando connector, which is what most people would see on a caravan or a motor connector. It's only about $200 to have it done by a spark, and that sort of cost me anyway. So maybe more than that now. because they suddenly worked out that this is happening and they need to start charging like a wounded bull, so they make some money. But yeah, so it's very straightforward and simple setup. If you go for a Tesla and you want to, like you say, in peak situation, you want to charge it up and you're doing reasonably good distances, then a wall box like we saw earlier is a good option.
Yeah, but there's,
You don't really
I know
need-
lots of people got Teslas and just use a
Just
3-pin
plug
plug.
Yep.
Only for years, just still use the 3-pin plug. I mean, if you know you're going to go for a big trip on the weekend, then you, over a couple of nights, you can charge it up.
Yeah.
No problem. And yeah, overnight you can charge at 100 kilometers of range. So if you're not traveling that much, then you're going to get ahead. It's easy enough.
Absolutely.
Insurance can be expensive. EVs are a bit new. Maybe that's not so much initially now. Insurers are starting to get a bit more used to it. Shop around. And there's some websites you can check out. Yeah, Conrad was going to circulate that or something.
Yeah. So by the way, everyone, if you registered online, I will be able to send all these slides to you through email. If you didn't, just have a chat with me afterwards and leave your email address with me and I'll get that to you.
So like Steve said, there's plenty of Facebook groups. There's Facebook groups for EVs in each region. There's also Facebook groups for each make of EV, I think.
Yes.
The other one to check out is electricheaven.nz Sig group, whatever, the guy down in Wellington has done a New Zealand guide to EVs, which covers all these basics. It's a really good job. It's about a dozen pages or so. It's free download PDF and it's well worth reading if you want a basic intro into electric vehicles. Otherwise, just the ones we talked about. There's ChargeNet that's got the charging stations, PlugShare, Better New Zealand Trust, Drive Electric, NZTA and Genless websites have got plenty of info as well.
You showed on one slide the cost of the petrol against the cost of the electricity.
Yeah.
Obviously, in your petrol price is the road tax that we pay, and it's not reflected in your electric vehicle charging.
That's right.
How long is you going to get free mileage out of the government?
I don't know. I'm not the
At the
government.
moment, they're saying 334.
Yeah,
24.
yeah. But I mean, they put in some regulations to put it in for a couple of years, and every time it's just about run out, they extend it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know.
Because they want to incentivize buying.
Yeah. I mean, my question is how they're going to handle that.
There's a discussion document at the moment going around, and the thinking at the moment is that there will be a overall charge. Everyone, they'll take the tax out of petrol. Everyone will pay around $700. Don't quote me. This is just a discussion document. Around $700 a year at a separate fee, and then the road transport industry will pay a little bit more on top of that because they're using the roads a lot more than we are. So that's the thinking at the moment. So we'll see where that goes. It may happen, it may not.
Yeah.
Would that be linked into that annual registration?
Yeah. So your annual registration will jump from like $100 to maybe closer to 1,000.
Yeah, they did that in Singapore in 1980s. I think a year's registration there was $1,600 Singapore dollars.
Yeah.
Then.
But yeah, they will be looking at other countries, obviously, to
Yeah.
have ideas for how that would work
Absolutely.
effectively.
Plagiarize good ideas. Absolutely. So that's it. Questions? All made sense?
I just thought I'd share my story. Driving an EV. So I drive a Tesla, and I got in a 4-hour traffic jam in Wellington because it was the storm last year and there was a slip over the road. It was near Point Royal, and I was just personally impressed by. I wasn't impressed by being stuck in the traffic jam for 4 hours, but I know that when I drove a petrol car, it would just waste a whole lot more energy sitting in a traffic jam for 4 hours. And with my EV, and I hardly used any energy for 4 hours.
Yep. So
what
I reckon that EV cruising on the highway uses about as much energy as an ICE vehicle idling standing still.
So how long do you think? I'm really keen to have a ute, and it seems that they're always about a year or 2 years away. And I know you did mention that they are getting closer, and there's the LDV one, but is that actually an option for if you want a 4-wheel drive farm vehicle?
The LDV's 2-wheel drive, I think.
Yes.
I don't really know. I'm sorry, I don't know. I mean, they've been talking about Cybertrucks for years.
Yes.
Yes. There's all these things we're still waiting for, but they're always 6 months or a year away and seem to perpetually stay.
Yeah.
It'll get there eventually. We don't know.
Engineer looking at it, but it's a bit fine as well.
I think it's quite promising. You see things like the 40 F-150 Lightning, the EV version of the big popular one in America. That's releasing in North America this year, I think.
Yeah.
And while it's going to be a while before they bring these to type cars in New Zealand, it's promising to see that happen because that car has a bigger towing capacity than the top model Ford Raptor you can get in New Zealand.
They're actually ridiculously big for New
Yeah.
Zealand.
Yeah.
And it's almost, some of those vehicles are just so huge and the amount of batteries they require, which seems almost ridiculous. Really. Like the Cybertruck and it just.
It's almost opposed to the green movement. which is
That's
like-
right, yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Well, they're trying to match the SUVs and the big.
And the Hummer is a Hummer. It's just massive.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
The 150 is caught on because you can actually plug your house into the trunk. I mean, that, brought to you by, the Texas collapse of the power system, I mean, that was a godsend from a marketing standpoint. But, suddenly they've taken the vehicle and they've almost forgotten it was a vehicle, and so it's being marketed on a totally different level than just, can it replace my car? And I think we'll see that here too, though maybe at a different level, certainly not for, giant catastrophes, but the idea of having a lot of batteries plugged in at night to the grid, that's pretty attractive if you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that vehicle to grid technology, again, that's coming in a couple of years. It's been for the last decade.
I believe there's electric tractors in the mix as well.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, and they, right from the little tiny wee ones that we use to look around the room, right up to the big ones that you can tow a convoy harvest.
Yeah,
I know John Deere are working on one at the moment, although I've heard that about half the cost of that tractor is just in the batteries alone. Yes, so it's a while ago.
Much dearer than electric tractors, much dearer than a diesel tractor.
So, thank you to Peter there. Next up, we have Andy Bassett, who is going to be talking about a bit of his experience with his Nissan Leaf, but also looking at some of the classic EV myth-busting questions that some of you might have had.
I've got just a couple of additional notes added from last time that I suddenly thought about. Okay, so I've got a Nissan Leaf that's one step up from Steve's. I've got a 30 kilowatt hour one. Go on. So it's this very one here, which is, as you can see, it's up by, what's it called? The Teapiti wind farm up by the Gorge. And so it's go on. Press it once.
What is it? You like
Why is it with me?
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't like me.
Must be operator, yeah.
Hold it longer. Whoa! It went back.
Pointed at the computer.
What are the computer?
Why don't you stand on the other side?
Yeah.
I'll try something that's, yeah. It all run backwards if I do.
Can't let this go in there, yeah.
2016, 30 kilowatt minute.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah, I'm doing it with the right hand. That's the problem.
okay.
There we
Oh,
go.
there you go.
Range is about 140 to 160. If I'm around town, it's 160. And I know that because I once charged it to 100% and happened to notice the exact point on the odometer at that point. And when it hit 50%, I'd done exactly 80 Ks. And when it hit 25%, I'd done exactly 120 Ks. And I thought, that's a good measure for me. So I'm happy with that. I haven't been out of town much in it since I got it. So, why do you like me? I'm charging at home mostly, and it's costing me about $20 a month. That's calculated. I haven't actually noticed it reflecting my bill, like everybody says. You don't really, it becomes invisible. But I plug mine in about every 4 or 5 days normally, and charge it from about 25% to 80%. And I worked out it's something like about $3.43 per chargeable. And of course, I haven't. I've done a bit more this week because I've been out about a bit more. Go on. It's like, the big selling point, you've heard about this regenerative braking. When I was thinking about getting an EV, a friend of mine who's got a 24 kilowatt Leaf got me to drive it, and I drove it up to the North Egmont Visitor Centre because I was a town visitor and I was showing him around the place. And then we drove down from there to Egmont Village. Of course, it's largely downhill and windy, steep roads, and you don't have to worry about going too slow. So I thought, let's see how much regen I can get from this. So okay, Great, turn the telly off. That was great. It's right next to the clicker button. That's right.
We're talking about charging things, I think.
Where have I gone now?
All right. Oh.
There's only one button.
But
There's back on. We have.
All right.
So back in the room.
Let me just make sure we've got this on the right screen now. Cool. Should be. Should be good to go now.
15.9 kilometers from North Egmont Visitor Centre to Egmont Village. And let's try and index finger straight down. And we're able to get 8% back into the car. And with that 24 kilowatt, that's about 11 to 12 kilometers. So by driving 15.9 kilometers, we gained an extra 11 or 12 kilometers.
Do you have to actually have your foot on the brake for the regeneration?
No,
circuit?
you take it off the accelerator and you'll see it starts, the green dots start coming in.
Yeah.
When you're going down a steep hill in town, in New Plymouth, places like Cumberland Street Hill are great for that. You know, you can put a couple of percent in going down there. Yeah.
So you didn't have it on cruise control?
No,
Okay.
I've never used the cruise control.
It would work.
Oh, yeah.
The later lease actually have a thing called an E-pedal, which is
Yeah.
basically one stop, one pedal driving. You don't need to brake at all. Is it Tesla the same?
Oh, yeah.
What about Sabina?
Wanted to take it.
We're moving right along because we have a time limit.
Yeah.
So
We do have a time limit here, so let's go on.
Yeah, in answer to the person's question, the regen is configurable.
Yeah.
You can adjust how much regen you get. Most of them it's adjustable, how much regen you get when you take the foot off the accelerator.
So my first trip out of town happened to be in New Plymouth to Howrah, just about a year ago, November 2020, and I just got the car and I charged it to 100% at home, set it off and came down to Howrah. And interestingly, you're largely going uphill as far as Stratford when you're coming downhill, and Stratford's more than halfway. So what happened was going that way was 56% of my battery charge, and then going back, I used 46%. A funny thing with the friend who's got the 24 kilowatt that I drove from Egmont Village and North Egmont Visitor Centre with, she turned up this week last year, actually, and we decided she wanted to go to Stratford. It was a long story about seeing the Glockenspiel Tower, and she's missed it on her last trip. And she charged 80% at New World in Perth. Drove to Stratford, and we got to Stratford, and we'd used 40%. And we thought, hang on, we've got to get home. And we thought, worst case scenario, we'll plug in at a friend's house in Inglewood. And on the way home, we used 19%. So it really is uphill for you to Stratford. And she drives a bit more like a nana than I do as well.
So if you live in New Plymouth and you work at Fonterra, there's a win-win for you.
Yeah. And then my first and so far only long trip I've made was over to Otani in Hawke's Bay, and I planned my route. This is from the plug share map, and I just ring these ones. Actually, I probably must have got it off the ChargeNet map because it doesn't have the other chargers any. Well, it does have the other ones, yeah, so it's just plug share. So I planned stop in Waverley, stop in Fielding, not Fielding, it was meant to be Bulls, and then stop in Dannevirke. And I'm the kind of guy who I'm quite happy when I stop in the morning. I thought I'm going to stop for morning coffee somewhere, I'm going to have lunch somewhere, and I'm going to have an afternoon tea. So I'm okay that way. You know, I'm not like Steve's wife, who just likes to go. So I thought morning tea in Waverley, that's great. And 112 k's to Waverley, and I made it with 22% left. And I was quite pleased with that, so 36 k's, I reckon. And plugged it in, nipped across the road to a cafe. 17 minutes later, my car's charged, I move on. Next plan, I was going to charge in Bulls. I looked on the app for ChargeNet, and the Bulls charger was out.
Oh.
So I thought, what do I do? So I looked to see where the nearest one was. There was one in Martin. So I took a 15k diversion to Martin. And it turned out they just installed it, got it running the day before. I was the first customer. So I got given a button. So
joys of being a pioneer.
yeah. So that was fun. And then the third stop in Dannevirke, nothing to report. That's how things was. It's kind of place. I just because I was going to a festival, I always stop in Dannevirke to pick up perishables for Countdown. But I was walking back from Countdown, and I was literally about as far away as that wall from my car, and my phone pinged to say that it finished charging. So that was my long trip, and so that's just an example of my Leaf life. I think the next thing I go on to here is where I start my myth busting. Yes. So some great EV myths. I started collecting links and putting them into a Word document because I was finding so much stuff online, so much absolute crap online, anti-EV propaganda. So I was saving it, so I wouldn't have to keep looking for it. I could just go to this document and go, no, actually this, and just paste it in as a comment. Yeah. And I ended up writing an article for Live magazine. I've got some copies there, but there is also an online edition. It looks prettier in the magazine, but I've got 25 links at the end of the online version. So what we've got here, the carbon footprint of battery manufacture makes the EVs worse than ICE. In terms of manufacture, true. In terms of the life of the vehicle, well, there's your tailpipe emissions on the average European car. And that's on a more efficient European car. So in terms of, there's that green part there is the lithium battery manufacture. So in the overall scheme of things, when you're looking at the life cycle of your car, yes, there is more involved in the manufacture, but in the overall life cycle of the car, it is actually more economical, less carbon footprint, and also you become carbon. It's not carbon neutral when you reach the parity with the manufacturer of an ICE vehicle. It's after about a year of driving your EV. So you kind of square off about there. It's going well so far. Right. EVs have a greater fire risk than ICE vehicles. Well, here's a great quote from this guy, Steve Hobo-Tuck, a senior research leader at Battelle. A battery-powered vehicle having a fire incident is newsworthy. A gasoline-powered vehicle having a fire is newsworthy only if it stops traffic. And last year, in August, there was an ICE fire on the Northern Motorway at Auckland, and there was TV footage and there's video footage on the Herald's website and all that stuff it went through, and by the afternoon, all gone. A Tesla caught fire in a garage in California in Christmas 2020, and they were still talking about it in August. Between 2014 and 2015, in the USA, they averaged 166.7 ICE vehicle fires per day. ICE fires account for about 13% of all US fire department call-outs. And per billion miles traveled, because it's American data I got it from, a Tesla is 11 times less likely to catch fire than an ICE vehicle. And they've had to work it out in terms of distance traveled because EVs haven't been around long enough to use other measurements. Yeah, that's how it's panned out. It was something like about 5 per million miles or something, and 55 price points. Petrol and diesel fires are quicker to start due to their nature as combustible fuels. And the duration and intensity of EV fires makes them harder to put out. They take longer to start up because you've got to really overheat the battery to make it happen. And the most common cause of car fires is a leak in the fuel system. And the most common way of making that happen is to crash your car. And I just read a statistic the other day that said an ICE vehicle is 300 times more likely to catch fire after a crash than an EV, because you're likely to rupture a fuel line. And yeah, so that's a bigger cause of those. Batteries can't be reused or recycled. Well, as it turns out, yeah, this company, Dusenfeld in Germany, they recycle their batteries to 91% efficiency. And they take an end-of-life battery, they discharge the remaining residual energy, feed that into the system that does the recycling. So it's actually helping power the recycling process. And then they disassemble it, mechanically strip it, and then through this hydrometallurgical process, they remove all these elements as well. And they can make new batteries from that, and then the cycle continues. And they had these graphs where currently most people recycling lithium-ion batteries only get 32% of it. When I first read about Dusenfeld, they had some data up to about 2019 in a video, and they said they were doing 72%, and they really wanted to crack how to recycle graphite. And they now recycle the graphite through this hydrometallurgical way. So now they're up to 91% recycling the battery. Just some electrolytes and separated.
So what about in New Zealand? What happens with batteries that, like the older vehicles that their batteries run out of life? What happens with those, like the leaks?
Yeah, what happens in terms of, I'll come to that, because that's part of what I'm doing here. Because moving along from that, they can be swapped out. There's a company called EVs Enhanced down in Christchurch who swap out batteries, and they've even got, the Nissan Leaf doesn't have an actively cooled battery. EVs Enhanced down in Christchurch have just built their own actively cooled replacement Nissan Leaf battery, and they start introducing it this year. So batteries can also be, so you can upgrade it to a higher capacity. So if you've got, because they can take perfectly serviceable batteries out of cars that might have been written off, for example. So if you've got a 24 kilowatt Leaf and it's getting down to 70% state of health, and you want to get a better one, then why not, rather than changing your car, why not just change your battery? And you can, and the higher capacity ones, like the 40 kilowatt, they are the same physical size, they can fit in the same space. And so you can just upgrade your car and give it more range.
How much is a battery?
I saw that, I think they were replacing them in with 24 kilowatts with 40 kilowatt ones for about 16,000.
Yeah. That cost come down because
and that would, yeah, but be more often, yeah. And the manufacturing costs will come down because there's more batteries being made.
Batteries that are old, they can actually be put into people's
Yeah,
homes. And
that's coming on here on the same slide. Yeah. So they can be refurbished, which is replenishing the cells, extending the life of the battery. And yeah, as I say, the battery can be reused to store solar power in the home, and you can get up to 10 years of life out of a Nissan Leaf battery after you've decided it hasn't got enough power left to really give you some range for the car, because it's not carrying the weight of itself and a car. It's not pushing a car around. It's just sitting there attached to your home. And so it's just pure electricity. And the other thing also, if you're swapping batteries out, is you can also, if you're not going to use it in your home, you can sell it to somebody who is, or sell it to somebody who's got a car with an even lower state of battery health.
I'm sorry, so how long does a battery last?
Well,
one
interestingly, Nissan, when the Leaf came out, they decided they would guarantee them for 8 years. 2018 came along and they suddenly realized they could have guaranteed them for 20 years. People have this idea that your battery is going to die in 5 years. My car is 6 years old now. It's got 11 bars still. Yeah, and yeah, so it's, plenty of life in it and plenty of range. It's like 160k, which is acceptable for me because I don't mind stopping and having a cup of tea. So the myth that people were mentioning earlier about EVs can't tow, I have nothing to say here. I do have something to say. That's a generator that one's towing there, so you get a bit of weight on that.
Well, that's what you do on long goods.
Andy,
that's more like it.
I did ask at the garage up the road from me, this is when I was in Partia, if they could order a tow bar.
Yeah.
And the guy looked it up online and he said, look, it's too light.
Yeah.
My particular.
Yeah.
So the Bmw I3, yeah.
Yes, they are super light.
Yeah.
Hello, last year on that I've got this. Yes, says the towing caravan. And another thing also that can help with towing, because of course you lose a bit of range when you've got more weight you're carrying, the more range you lose. So you tow a caravan, you're might lose about 20% of your range, say. But there is a company, another German company called Desleft. They developed a powered trailer. So it's got batteries built into its frame, which makes it lighter. And it means that when you plug your trailer in to get the lights going and everything, you've also got its own battery, which means you're not draining the car battery so much. So people think of these things. Whole new industries come up on the back of EVs. Now, EV stuck in a snowstorm or a traffic jam. I think it was you were talking about that. Yes, yeah. I thought I'm glad you brought that up. The actual example in the room, that was great. There's a meme that goes around saying there's pictures of cars in snowstorms. Oh, the EV people didn't think of this, did they? Their car will die in a couple of hours and they'll freeze to death. And because they don't have air conditioning, is what the other thing they said. Okay, so when a nice car is stuck in traffic, its engine will be idling over. I heard somebody complaining a couple of weeks ago that they'd used up about $20 worth of fuel waiting in the queue at McDonald's in Belgrade. When an EV is stuck in traffic, its motor expends no energy. The battery pack may still be using some power to run the aircon if it's on. And it also uses some to keep charging the 12-volt battery, which powers all the other electrical functions, the stereo, window lights, door locks, and the heated seats and heated steering wheel, which is such a great feature of the car.
Just a few months ago, there was a big ice storm in Washington, D.C., East Coast of the U.S., and there was huge traffic jam. There were people stuck out there for overnight and like a day and a half. The next day, Tesla came out and said, in your car, you got your Tesla, you're good. You're going to be nice and warm for about 90 hours. Try that in your ice.
And just
there's a lot of stories of people going to the EVs because they're the ones that are still warm. And that's all.
And related to that, just looking at a basic 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. The aircon uses about 3.5 kilowatts when you turn it on, and about within the first few minutes, once it's actually warmed up, it's using about 1 kilowatt hour. So get the scenario: you've charged your 24 kilowatt Leaf up to 100%, set off down the road, got stuck in a snowstorm. With its aircon running the whole time, it would last just under a day, which is pretty good going. If you're just stuck there, can't move at all, but well, keep the aircon going. And then after that, you've still got what's left in your 12-volt battery. You can always heat your seat up. And the thing I noticed last winter with this seat heating is that once you've had it on for about 5 minutes, you want to turn it off. And then your body keeps the seat warm. And it's great after that. So, the EVs run on coal thing, or as Steve mentioned earlier. Okay, the strain of the national grid. The coal supply is up to about 10% of New Zealand's power at peak times. And Steve mentioned the 6 till 9 thing. I think there's also the big industrial use in the day as well. Yeah, yeah. And well, that's different. That doesn't use coal. Yeah. Renewable energy sources average about 77.7 of all the power, and it's often higher than that. And the Climate Change Commission plans to phase out coal power altogether by 2025. And when TUI Point closes at the end of 2024, if they go ahead and close it, that uses up 13% of the entire electrical output of the nation.
As soon as they get rid of it.
Yeah, and it's all hydro from Lake Manapori, so you don't have all that going back into the grid. This is the electricity map, which is a worldwide one, and you can go on at any time, and it has pretty much hourly kind of captures of the amount of electricity being used. For my live magazine article, I checked regularly between July and November, and not once when I was looking did coal even appear. I went to take a snapshot last week of it, and bloody coal turned up. Half a gigawatt. But then there's hydro and geothermal, and then natural gas and wind and unknown. Yeah. So there's a little bit of coal involved, but 81% renewable. And so that's now, what about the future? Because EVs, contrary to popular opinion, will not all be charging at the same time. And you know, we talked about how the range keeps getting bigger and bigger. As the range gets bigger, they're going to be charging less often anyway. But even now, we've got fewer vehicles, and some have smaller range and a bigger range, but they don't all charge at the same time. The expansion of off-grid power, people using their own solar power and various other forms of power to power their homes and have storage at the home, and they can charge. You know, if you've got solar power to run your home, you can charge in the daytime when the sun shines and you're getting free electricity.
And you can use your old battery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the increased efficiency of solar panels, and presently they harness about 20% of their potential. I got into a discussion online about EVs and solar power, and I said, well, when solar panels become more efficient, won't we be able to charge, like have panels on the cars, you know, or all that kind of thing? And they're saying the sun isn't going to provide more energy than it was before. And I said, no, but how efficient are solar panels right now? And the same engineer came back to me, they're about 20%. So if they were 40%, we'd have twice as much power coming out of them, wouldn't we? She said, no, I suppose you're right. So it was great to get somebody arguing against me who actually proved my point for me by providing information on you.
You can actually get a, my last car was like a stepping stone into a full EV, which is a Prius Prime plug-in. You can actually get that model with a solar panel roof.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I already got them.
Yeah. I don't see why. Well, I've said things like charging as you go via onboard solar panels. I've also just put technology as yet unknown, because we don't know what's coming in the next 10 years. Because one thing that's occurred to me is at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if solar panels would be something you can actually spray onto your car.
You can buy them at Kmart. You can put them on the dashboard of your car, and they will actually power your mobile phone and,
Yeah,
you know, your,
to charge your fridge while you're camping.
Yeah,
and all
all
that
that
stuff.
stuff,
Yeah. So that was the end of that, I believe. Oh yes, EVs are not the magic bullet. That's my final conclusion on this whole thing. That no one thing is going to take over from the ICE vehicles, but oil and gas is on its way out because you know we've gone past peak oil and that kind of thing, and it's got environmental damage. So we need to do things like minimize short journeys, share vehicles, work more from home, take up cycling and walking, use public transport where possible. And the days of a single industry monopoly like oil and gas are gone. The EVs is one of many solutions. It's not just technological, but it's societal because it's our mindset and how we think it. That's what's going to take us forward in the future. And just one more thing, which I didn't get to say in New Plymouth, because today I charged my fast charged my Leaf for the first time since I looked on the ChargeNet thing since the 26th of January last year. On the way back from Hawke's Bay. Yeah, so today it was a bit of a thrill to go, to the ChargeNet and then have to wait for Steve. Yeah. Okay, so that's me, and I'll hand it back. I think Al's on next. So.
Just give you a quote. Hi, this is the link here, livemagazine.co.nz,
Oh, yes, that's right, yes.
EVs-demystified.
Yeah.
If you want to read.
And find all 25 links to go with it. Yes. If you want the pretty version with pictures and glossy paper, it's here. It's free.
Okay, so last but not least, we have Al Barkler, who is going to talk a little bit about, you might have noticed these Ubco motorbikes here in the corner of the room. He's going to talk a bit about these, and feel free to come up afterwards and ask me questions about them.
That's cool. I don't need that. That's all I need. So, yeah, I've got a piece of paper. I'm not using a fancy PowerPoint presentations. Okay, so this evening has been predominantly about cars, but I'm going to talk briefly about electric motorcycles, specifically the Ubco bikes. So Ubco is a New Zealand company. It's based in Mount Maunganui, and it was started by two Kiwis, so that's a little bit unusual. Daryl Neal and Anthony Clyde back in 2015. So we have more than 30 dealers in New Zealand, and they were selling bikes in Australia, the UK, and especially in the huge US market. So electric versus petrol from a motorcycle point of view. The main points of difference. So as you all know, motorcycles are traditionally very noisy, both for the rider and the observer. So being able to ride a motorcycle in an urban or a rural environment without the noise is really a game changer. They're lightweight. They have an alloy frame and they weigh approximately 70 kilos. This is an American slide. So it's in pounds and miles per hour. They are very easy to ride. So there's no clutch, no gears. You just simply twist the throttle and go. So they're very easy to pick up if you drop them. You can literally pull them up with one finger if they fall over. The center of gravity is so low on them. And easy to maneuver if you get into a tight spot. So Ubco's main point of difference is that they're two-wheel drive. They have independent controllers to the hub drive motors in each wheel.
Can you vary the torque on each wheel?
Not on each wheel. You can adjust the power level via an app, and you can also adjust the regen on the motors, which gives you engine braking as well as the regen effect of feeding power back into the battery.
I guess the question you are wondering is, can they tow?
The short answer is no. The long answer is yes, they have tried lightweight trailers, and they can tow a lightweight trailer, but no, they're not going to tow a trailer load of palm kernel or bales of hay. No,
Not yet.
not yet. Yeah, good point. The other question, of course, is always range. What are they? 75 miles. Yeah. So they are capable of doing over 100 Ks on a charge. Realistically, you're going to get probably 50 to 80 Ks in the real world, depending on the battery size and depending on conditions.
Weight of the driver.
Sorry.
The weight of the rider.
Yes, well, yeah, lots of things. Yes. So the payload, 330 pounds. Yeah, 150 kilos, rider and load. You can put extra racks on them to carry here with you. So they have e-throttle, keyless fobs, so no key, a 10 amp charger, just a normal 3-pin plug. You charge it overnight, 4 to 6 hours to charge. So we have two models, as you've probably seen, the white one and the black one. So the white adventure bike, that's fully road legal. It's registrable as a scooter because they're limited to 50 Ks an hour. And no warrant fitness is required. And you can ride them on any car or motorcycle license. They've been used for commuting, as food and parcel delivery, secondary transportation on a motorhome. You can easily put them onto a tow ball rack on the back of a vehicle and carry them around. Great for a dash to the supermarket, or trip up a gravel road or down to the beach, something like that. Tourism operators are using them. They're very simple to train people to ride, and they're much safer to ride than a traditional motorcycle. I actually just learned today that Rarotonga has ordered, I think, 10 or 11 bikes. So on your next trip to Raro, you may be able to hire one and ride around the island. So the black one is the work bike, the off-road bike. So they're the same bike, just a stripped down version. No dash, no indicators, no mirrors. They've been used for all types of farming and horticulture, hunting and fishing. Hunters love them, of course. They're able to ride right into their hunting spot without disturbing any wildlife. The Department of Conservation is using them for track maintenance, again without disturbing track users. Regional councils are using them for farm and forestry inspection. They've been put to all sorts of uses. They're very versatile.
Now, can you purchase extra battery and just swap them out rather than waiting for them to charge?
Yeah, absolutely. You can swap a battery out in probably less than a minute. Very easy to swap them out. Realistically, very few people do because range isn't really an issue for most people. But yeah, it certainly can be done easily. Yeah.
From a mum's perspective, can you fit the kids, tray seats so you can like kid on the back to get down?
Bungee cord?
Like bungee. Only because this is a one-person rider. If you want to,
it is a single seat. They are designed for one person.
Yeah.
Having said that, I have seen a small family on one. But yeah, they're not really designed for that. But hey, yes, it can be done. Not looking at anyone in particular, really.
What about one your 87-year-old mother?
UPCO also has in pre-production a more trail-orientated bike, and also a side-by-side type four-wheeler. So we're looking forward to having these available in the future too. I'm not sure how far away they are, but probably probably still a year or two away, Ross.
Yeah, seems to be the way.
But yeah, for now, these are proving to be a viable alternative to petrol bikes. Very viable. So these bikes are retailing for around 7,500 to 8,500, including GST. So yep, that's a brief presentation from me.
Do they have to, you have to register them even though you don't need to warrant fitness?
To use them on the road?
To use
Yes.
them on the road.
Yes. Yep. So you get a number plate,
Yeah.
which is about just over $200 for a scooter for the first one, and then it gets a bit cheaper after that.
Okay.
So that's really your only cost.
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Ross.
The New Zealand Army were trialing them.
Yes, the Defence Force, they were trialing them. I don't actually know the outcome of that. But again, you know, they've been put to all sorts of uses. And yeah, obviously the quietness.
Very
for the
quiet
army
invasion.
was-
Very quiet invasion.
Yes.
It's not long distance.
Yeah, yeah, as long as it's not, as long as it's not more than 100 k's away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, range might become an issue eventually. But of course, they've got generators and things too. So, and if you have spare batteries as well.
Generators all pretty well off diesel anyway.
Yeah.
True. True. So yeah, that's just something different. Some people may not be aware of what's available. So thank you.
That's really cool.
Oh, thanks for that. So that brings us to the end tonight. Thank you very much for all of you for coming along, and a big shout out to our speakers that really made the event happen. And also a big thank you to Andrea, Joe, and Alexandra from Sustainable Taranaki for working with us to help make this happen. And especially they allowed us to do 2 events, one in and this one tonight.
Plus for time management.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's perfect. So we're just going to finish off with a karakia. Feel free if you'd like to join along with me. Uni here, uni here, uni here, ki te uru tapunui. Kia wātia, kia mama, te nāko, te tinana, te wairu, iti ara takutu. Koira I rongo, wakaria, aki ki ronga. Kia wātia, aira, kua wātia, au hamaria. Oh, we've got plenty of food left, by the way. And I think we're going to need a hand getting rid of, so feel free to fill your pockets.